My first ever real estate deal that I walked into and met with a homeowner came from emailing postcards and letters to foreclosures. I literally picked 50 people out because I was still working at the time, so I didn't have a lot of time. I was also on a shoestring budget. So I sent out postcards and letters to people who are facing foreclosure, and I got a phone call. And the caller ID said Walmart payphone. And the lady on the other line said, "Hey, take my number down. Take my address. I got your letter. Can you come out and meet me tonight at 8 o'clock? I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I can do that." So she gave me her address, which is on Sill Cove here, just north of me here. I still remember the address today. So I get off the phone with her, schedule a meeting at 8 o'clock. I immediately jump online, do some research on the property. It's a big house, one of these Kaufman Brody houses, 2-story boxes on about a third of an acre, on a cul-de-sac. So she told me when I get there, go knock on the door and go stand by the garage. And I didn't understand why. So when I get there, it's a little chilly. It's been, actually, we've had some ice. So there's ice on the ground still here in Austin, Texas. So it's February. Knock on the door, or ring the doorbell. Suddenly I hear all these big dogs barking. Okay. I'm like, okay, that's why she wanted me to go stand by the garage. So I go stand by the garage. About a minute later, the garage starts to open up and I'm caught by the smell. And it's literally as the garage is opening, I can see that there's a car parked in the garage, but then there's all these black trash bags in there. And then this lady is walking out of the garage, and she's about, 5 foot tall, about 4 foot wide, okay? She goes, "You Scott?" And yes, I am. She's like, okay, we talked for a little bit about her situation. She'd owned the house, owned several houses, but then had issues with friends and some drugs and stuff like that, but was way behind. And she proceeded to tell me that the power was on, but the water had been on in about 4 months. I was like, okay. But I can see as I'm looking in the garage, because I still didn't go inside the house. She didn't want me to come in. And I'm like, I really need to come in and take a look at it. So she's okay. But she turns around and walks in. Well, she's wearing these loose, elastic pants that split right down the middle. And the wind was blowing, and basically I'm seeing her ass in these big granny panties. Like, okay, at least they're looking clean. Because the smell from the garage was a little difficult. You could smell, garbage and stuff like that. Well, we walked to the house and it got worse. It got worse from there. So we go in, and there's these she's got 4 big dogs, okay? And I'm walking into it, and it's smelling like piss and crap. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I'm walking the carpet, it's kind of squishy, like a sponge. And I get to see that there's just dog crap, dog shit everywhere in the house, all on the floor. These 4 big dogs have been just rolling it. There's trash everywhere. There's clothes. We walk in, I can see the kitchen is just piled with dirty dishes and styrofoam and go-to containers. And she moves a bunch of clothes over and goes to sit down on her chair. And I sit down in the spot she cleared for me on the couch. And I'm sitting there talking to her, and these 4 big dogs keep coming up to her and licking her in the face, stuff like that. Oh. And I'm like looking around, and I can see that these dogs are just shitting everywhere. And then I'm looking at the sheetrock, and the paint is one color, but the first foot to 2 feet is like yellow-gray, where they're basically dogs. I'm literally watching the dogs go up and lift their legs on the sheetrock. I'm like, oh, this is nasty. Flies in the kitchen. Like she said, the water's been off for several months. I said, well, let me walk around and take some photos. So she didn't want me to go in the bathrooms. Okay, so I said, I got to take photos. So we'd open up the bathroom, and it would just be this smell of shit and piss hitting me. And, I can still remember this day. You'll never forget that smell. And what she'd been doing is using the toilets to do her business. And then when that got full of excrement, she would use a 5-gallon Homer bucket to crap in and put toilet paper in. And she would use one bathroom until the toilet became full. And then she'd close it off and go the other. There was 3.5 bathrooms in this house, and all 3.5 or all 4 of them were horrible. We walk up to the master bedroom. She's basically cleared out a spot on the bed where she's sleeping, but then it's surrounded by to-go containers and crap like this. She was basically not a hoarder, just a trashy person. I get asking her, I said, so do you take the dogs outside? She starts griping, oh no, the neighbors don't like my dogs. There's a fence broke. My dog got out, and they call the cops on me, so I don't take them outside at all. I'm like, okay, I can tell why. Anyway, we go to sit down, and the dogs start to come up to me and want to lick me, and I'm like, no, I don't want to. She's like, oh, you don't like dogs? I'm like, no, I'm more of a cat person, even though I've got a dog at home. And I'm getting sick to my stomach as I'm watching these dogs playing their own instrument, walking on this squishy carpet of piss, and going up and licking her and stuff like that. So, well, let me see what I can do. So I took a bunch of photos. World Savings held a mortgage on this, so I was trying to do a short sale. And long story short, 6 months goes by. World Savings will not budge on doing a short sale. I can't do anything. She would call me from the payphone like once every 2 weeks, and I was like, I don't have any update. You know, and I'm literally like, they wouldn't do anything. Fast forward a couple months, I'm not able to do anything, so we close the file, so I'm just not anything to do. I get a phone call from World Savings. They're like, are you so-and-so Mr. Diaz or something like that? I'm like, no, I'm Scott Carson. She goes, well, we're trying to track down this buyer. I'm like, oh, and I'm like asking them, what's the address? They're like 207 Silcova. I'm like, are you serious? I said, whatever happened? The borrower, she passed away in the house. She died in the house, and the dogs started to eat on her. All right, because they were without food and stuff like that. So anyway, we were able to track down the buyer on this. They actually had to clean all the stuff. He goes, it took them like 3 dumpsters of just trash bags and shit. And, you know, then they had to strip it all the way down to the studs, the bare concrete, and put stuff back in there just because of all the mess. But the thing that I keep thinking about is going to all these events, hearing Ron LeGrand talk about how the smell of shit and piss is the smell of money. Well, if that's the case, that house is rolling in it. But anyway, that was my first phone call. I remember driving home from that appointment, calling my wife at the time, said, hey, honey, put some soap, put the water hose in the garage, give me some clean clothes. And I remember getting out of the house, getting out of the truck, going in there, just stripping down, taking my clothes and literally throwing them away because it was just so bad. And it just surrounded. But that was my first indoctrination to talking with homeowners in distress and trouble and walking into something like that. So there you go. Smell of shit and piss is the smell of money. Thanks, Ronald Grant.